So I've got the recorder going. I've opened it up on Facebook streaming. We are now live on Facebook. So we have Mastermind with Neil Schwartz. We have a very special guest today. Where's Jared? Jared, there you are. Welcome,
Right here.
buddy. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. We're very, very glad that you're here. I actually was talking with a guy earlier today who said you coached him at one time. Mario, ring a bell?
Yeah,
Got it.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. He had really nice things to say about you. Good job.
I appreciate that. Yeah. If I remember correctly, he was a newer agent, young, energetic, had a lot of great questions, always came to the call, ready to go.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, he said that you were a great coach, and whatever you did for him at that time was helpful.
Great.
So good stuff. So why don't you just give us a little Reader's Digest version of where your market is, maybe how your business progressed, some of that kind of stuff. All right.
Sure. So name Jared Amaral. I've been in the business just over 17 years, and I'm located in the Central Valley of California. I'm sure most of you are from California, but for those who are not, Central Valley is just right in the heart of the state. It's about 50 to 60 miles wide and about 450 miles in length. Our area is known for farming, agriculture. We have one of the most fertile soils, in the world. We actually provide at least 50% of vegetables, fruits, and nuts to the United States itself alone. My office is near the Interstate 5 corridor. I'm sure everybody knows where Interstate 5 is. And I'm in a little town called Newman. And our population here is just over 12,000. So very small. I started in this business, I'd probably say I was about 25 years old. And I came to work for a family-owned business, Stevens and Borelli. And the reason I chose this office was because I knew I would be able to get the one-on-one training, the knowledge. I didn't want to get thrown into a large company and just fend for myself. I knew I would get the attention that I needed, to grow the business that I wanted. One day I walked into my broker's office and he handed me a postcard and I said, "What's this?" He said, "I don't know, looks interesting, you might like it." So what it was is Mike Ferry was doing an action workshop in San Jose, California. I believe it was October 2004. I still have the notes actually from that action workshop. Now you've heard many agents over the years, talk about, yeah, I was the guy sitting in the back of the room, right? Right here. I was that guy sitting in the back of the room. And I remember, I believe it was day 3 of that action workshop, I thought, gosh, I'm not going to have any career if I don't have this guy in my life. Like, I had no direction. Mike had all the direction. And it was one of those moments where you have butterflies in your stomach, because I walked to the back of the room to sign up for what was known then as one-on-one coaching, what is known today as premier coaching. For someone 25 who really didn't have much money, to start forking out $1,000 a month was a really big deal. So that's why I had those butterflies in my stomach. But I also knew at the same time it was the right decision. And I've been very fortunate to only have been with Mike ever since, for all those years. I know there's other trainers out there, his son, you got Brian Buffini. If you were to ask me, what do they do to train agents? I honestly couldn't tell you. The only thing I could tell you is based off what, other great agents have experienced themselves. First coach, Fritz Pollard, who was probably, VP of coaching back then. Neil, you probably remember Fritz Pollard. Probably worked with him for a little over a year. And looking back, I probably felt really sorry for him because I would come to the call and I would literally have a list of 15 to 20 leads, and they were all buyers. just this long list. So my conversion was just crap. It was just crap. And I think that first half a year in business, I might have done 3 or 4 transactions at best. So, after, working with Fritz, I'm sure he was spinning his wheels. He actually sit me in with Coach Ann Baker. And at the time, Ann was starting a program called Skills and Scripts. So this was, I believe, a 6-month, course where you just dove into the scripts, very similar to some of the programs that they have there today. And I'd probably say at that time, second, 2.5, 3 years in at most, I was finally realizing the whole concept of the Mike Ferry organization. There's so much information that Mike and everybody gives you, it's overwhelming. Everybody here knows that. But I think it wasn't until I got into Skills and Scripts that I thought, this is what makes it work. Was really understanding, knowing what to say, how to say it, and your delivery, and making sure you're listening. And, it takes years of practice, as we all know. Success for me, of course, didn't happen overnight, as we all would like it to. I was very slow and steady, if you will. I finally got to 10 deals, then I got to 15, 18, 20 some. After Skills and Scripts, and then sent me on my way to retired coach Kathy Anderson. And Kathy, I worked with Kathy for over 10 years. Don't tell anybody that, but over 10 years straight, she was my coach. And she really pulled out of me, Neil, I'm an amiable. I know you're an amiable, so you probably really understand where I'm coming from. But she really pulled out of me that it was okay to be this person at the office. It's okay to be that, Jedi salesperson. During the day, you can be who you are after hours. And that was really helpful to kind of have that whole different mindset of becoming a different person. So from there, Kathy really, pushed me along. And I was fortunate to be involved with the REO market. We had to survive. There was really no choice. Our counties here were probably rated 5th hardest hit in the US, where we dropped 60 to 70%, in value. At the bottom, my average commission was $1,800.
Wow.
1,800. So I went from like 6,500, 6,000 right in there, all the way down to 1,800. So at that point in my career, I had no choice but to sell in high volume to make up for it. And part of that was a really good motivation. From REOs, as everybody knows, short sales came to be. I was a little nervous about that. I'm not a big numbers guy, and I thought, oh crap, this is going to be the death of me. But Kathy was great about, foreseeing what was ahead. We made the right adjustments, and we did phenomenal in short sales. Got a lot of great opportunity to double into a lot of those listings to make up for that. From there, it's just, I hired my first assistant when I was on track for 40 deals, and I still have the same assistant. She's been with me now, I guess, 13 years. And we work really well together. And then in 2016, Mike asked me to coach for him full time. Big decision, because it's a huge commitment. And it wasn't an easy decision. Part of that is not wanting to fail, not wanting to let Mike, Sabrina down, the company, a company that I've cherished, my whole career. It was probably the best experience by far that I've ever had, was coaching. I stepped down last year due to health reasons, and got back into sales full time. And it's been a lot of fun being on this side of it. After coaching for 4 years full time, to go right back into sales with a whole different perspective. And I learned so much from the coaching clients themselves. It definitely goes both ways. We teach them the system, but they also teach us things too, which is very valuable. Yeah. So that's just kind of a little bit of background up to this point.
And we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So when you came back in, so you've been really back, boots on the ground, how long?
August of last year.
Okay, so right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Good job.
The only time to do it.
Exactly. So, so you started really probably ground zero. Not a lot. Your past client sphere has kind of gone away unless you did something to stay close to them.
You know, my current coach is Sydney Folan, and this was a conversation I had with her maybe sometime last year, even beginning of this year. I probably would say my biggest regret was not pushing myself hard enough with the past clients in Sphere while coaching full time. My mindset at the time was, I got to put all my energy and focus into the client. I don't want to be distracted. Granted, yes, I did real estate transactions, but it averaged like 15, 18 a year just servicing the client, but not going after the client. Big difference.
Wait a second. Wait. You were just hanging around doing 15 deals a year.
In a way, that's how I look at it.
You were a full-time Mike Ferry coach.
Yeah.
Okay. And through osmosis, you picked up 15 transactions a year.
Yes.
How many transactions at the peak of your business before you went into coaching?
65 closed and pending.
How many?
65.
65 closed and pending.
Mm.
And from those 65 closed and pending, how many past client and Sphere do you think you had at that time, more or less?
At that time, it was probably 60, 70%, 60%.
Right. And what was the size of the database?
Well, now I got the database down to just under 500. It's probably like 4.25. You know, going through, culling through, deleting. Yeah.
Right. But before you did that, you were getting 12, 15 transactions a year for 4 years, right?
Yeah. So from before that, the database number with center of influence was probably around the 600 or 700 number.
Those 600 or 700 were throwing off 15 deals a year to you.
Yeah, without asking.
That's my point. That's golden. That's golden.
It is, but I never looked at it that way because I could have, with intention, with purpose, done so much better. I was always just nervous I wouldn't be able to handle the load and then coach, 45 to 55 agents a week.
So Jared, let me ask you, since you've been back, sounds like a song. Since you've been back in full-time sales, what's your production now?
So last year I ended with 25 closed and pending.
So this that was 3 months worth of work?
From August to the end of the year.
Well, 6 months worth of work.
6 months, yeah.
Okay, 6 months.
And then this year, my goal is 50. And right now I'm at 13 closed, 6 pending.
All right. So for a third of the year, you're at 20. So it puts you on track for 60.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
For you. So most of it, so now it sounds like you're working your past client and Sphere, right?
Yes.
Okay, so right. So is that where most of that business is coming from?
Yeah, like 70%.
Got it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Been very fortunate.
Good for you. Good stuff. So you prospect every day, you role play every day. I mean, what
every day
you brought to it?
Correct. So right now I'm probably down to 3 role plays a week because I've had 2 change and I haven't replaced them just yet. And I do prospect every day. When I started back in August, it was a little unknown. Okay, how many people do I need to talk to? So last year was all 20 contacts a day. This year, Sydney and I decided to make the adjustment and I'm doing 30 contacts a day.
Okay, got it. And that looks like it's gonna get you to your goal.
Correct.
So the contacts that you make, mostly past client and Sphere, or
That's
you
correct.
listed just sold?
Yeah, so a majority, I would say at least some days, at least 50% of the 30 is PC COI. Right. And then the other is just listed, just sold with some sprinkles of the few expireds and FSBOs that we do have.
So mindset, let's go back to mindset. Okay, it's August. You're shifting from being a Mike Ferry full-time coach or having a full-time job, doesn't matter. That you
Correct. That's right.
So you shifted gears. You could have been a paint salesman for,
Sure.
You started from what sounds like kind of ground zero. with a little bit of stuff going on.
Correct.
Right? What was how did you stay on the phones? How do you do the role play and the practice? I mean, what's going on there?
It was an adjustment in the sense of I had a moment of panic, and I remembered that if I stayed in that moment of panic, then I would paralyze myself. So I did really well. I just didn't allow it to be a thought. I had to almost mentally fake it, if you will.
Okay.
Like, and I had to think back, like, look, hey, I've done this and I did it without trying. So now I'm going to try. Therefore, that business should be there. And definitely coming to the call with Sydney was critical at that time, because I was even working with Sydney in coaching as a coach, but not on my business. So when she said, well, who do you want to be your coach? It sounds like I was on the show of The Voice. I was going to pick 4 people. No, I was like, well, obviously I said, you're a driver. And for an amiable, I respond very well with the driver. So it made sense for me to stay with Sydney. And we just, it was all about coming up with a simple plan. We set the goal up, but what I did is I just took the plan. I've always done this. I've condensed that down. Okay, this is what I need to do in the quarter. This is what I have to do in the month. Then I just look at, okay, what do I need to do this week? Right. And I just stay in the week. Because if I allow myself to look at the month ahead, where I'm supposed to be getting 4 to 5 listings a month, it's a little overwhelming, So I just put my head down and say, okay, what do I have to do this week only? That is what helps me tremendously, and still does today.
Got it. Absolutely. Totally makes sense. So what specifically would you tell a newer agent or a midline agent, maybe an agent, because having 200 to 400 in past client and sphere is kind of somewhat normal for most people.
For sure.
Certainly,
it's nothing crazy. Yeah, it's nothing extraordinary. Absolutely.
But they're not doing 50 deals, my friend. They're not doing 50 deals. What's the difference between Jared and his 50, 60 transactions from a kind of a standing start and other agents who have the 2 to 400, 2 to 500 past client sphere, but they're not doing 50 deals? What's the difference, Jared?
I think part of that is the intention of the call or the conversation. I'm not just going to go on the surface. So, hey, this is a business call. Do you have a second for me? These are people that I know. And yeah, I do say, hey, Neil, this is Jared. You have a really quick second. I'll dive in, but I'm going to bring something of value, whether it's a statistic of the market, to let them know, hey, based on this, who do you know that really should be taking advantage right now? Of our low interest rates or, the high prices. I really go in there with that purpose. And I'll always end the call with, aside from, everything we talked about, do you have any real estate questions for me that I can help you with?
Okay.
I always want to come from a place of value. What I would suggest to either brand new agents or, agents that have been in the business a few years, I always say fake it till you make it. Because I had to. When I started out, I was young. I was 25, no experience. Who's going to hire me? I looked young.
You're still young.
Still young, yeah. So I looked young, and you have that lack of confidence. But one of the things that really got me through that was studying my market stats. The market statistics, you can't. The numbers are the numbers. Mm-hmm. You're not fibbing, you're not lying. You have to come across as the local expert. And Tony Smith said it best, when he was doing the listing presentation workshops. He was doing one in San Jose probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I attended. It resonated what he said. He said, if you're not studying your market stats, at least, every other week, twice a month, he said, then you should discount your commission to your seller.
Interesting.
And it's true. They're hiring you based on your knowledge, your expertise. And if you can't come to the table and say, this is what's happening, these are the numbers, they're going to kind of see through that. And so I would say market stats is really a great way to start.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Great way to start.
In your, I don't know what MLS you use up there. Do you have access to a tool called InfoSparks?
If we do, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, sounds good. Okay, so tell me, what are you doing different now as a real estate agent coming back that you didn't do before?
I would say that's a great question, Neil. There's just something I'm just enjoying it more. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't have that fear, I guess, because I've been there now. I've done it. I know what to expect. I'm not afraid of, objections, as I once was. I don't take things personally, as an amiable, someone slams the door in your face or hangs up the phone on you extra hard, right? You kind of take a moment like, oh crap, it kind of messes with you a little bit, but that doesn't faze me anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily doing anything different. Okay. I'm just allowing myself to enjoy sales.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And make a nice living at it, right?
Making a great living, absolutely.
Good, excellent, good for you.
Now, if I lived in your neck of the woods, I'd make an awesome living.
So I'm curious, Jared, when do you plan on moving?
Well, you know what? I just bought my first $1 million property at the beginning of March, so that was a big deal for me. Yeah,
that's a garage in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Come on down.
Come on down. That's right.
Exactly. So Jared, what do you think is your superpower? What's the thing that gets you going and keeps you going?
Yeah, that was a really tough question for me, because there's so many different ways you could probably look at that. And after doing some, real, heavy thoughts on that, I thought probably my best superpower is honing in on like the client's emotion, their needs. Especially if I have a very upset or confrontational client, whether it's a FSBO or expired or just someone having a bad day and I called and got in the middle of their bad day. I'm really great about keeping calm, and listening and basically winning them over to my side. I want them to know that I'm here to help. I'm here to make life easier, not harder. And a lot of that is just listening. Just being agreeable, not making anybody wrong, having empathy. Gosh, Neil, with the pandemic and, you mentioned some families, been very ill and really been, suffering from everything. How has that affected you? Mm-hmm. I might ask, if depending on the conversation, more of a personal question, versus just keeping it business surface all the time. Yeah.
Give me an example of what you're referring to there.
Well, like for example, when talking to an expired, just really angry and upset, just a bad experience altogether. And sometimes you get those expireds that switch over and say, you know what, I'm not going to list, just bring me a buyer. That whole objection there. So instead of just handling the whole objection of just that, I might take a different route and say, I'm kind of hearing, that maybe you didn't have a great experience the first time. Can you tell me a little bit more about the first time you listed? What was that like?
Okay.
I'll just take a little bit of a different backdoor approach first.
Okay, good.
Get them to open up a little bit more.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah.
Excellent. And you're still doing expireds out there today?
Yeah, there's, it's just barely a handful. So that's why the database, I've been very fortunate with the database, the just listed, just solds. I've done really well with those.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So one of the questions I like asking is there a particular script or dialogue or objection handler that when this happens, you got a big smile on your face because you know how to handle it.
Yeah.
It's coming. Is there anything like that for you?
Right. In this market, I will say this, I've been fortunate. I don't get as many of the common objections, but there is one that will still surface, every month. And it's basically the whole discount broker thing.
Okay.
I got this from, I wish I could remember. I'm not even sure how long I've been aware of this objection handler, but I did get it from another MFO agent. So if they're listening, credit to you for this. But I'll get a homeowner that says, well, we've talked to a couple of other agents and they're willing to do 1%, 2%. Would you be willing to do the same? And I'll say, I really appreciate that. And you know what they're doing, don't you? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'll say, well, they're using your house as a billboard advertisement. See, they put your house up for sale, and they advertise and then they collect all the buyers. But then they take those buyers and then they sell them other properties. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you should be charging $2,000 a month for your billboard services.
Huh.
And then I just kind of quiet, because they're quiet. They're like really processing what I just said, because in the end, you're paying little or nothing to the agent, and you're going to get little or nothing in return. So tell me, Mr. Seller, why do you absolutely need to sell your home? So the important part to that is handling it, but getting back to the question of why are you moving? What's important about selling your home now? And moving on with a question.
Okay, good. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Jared, you open for a couple questions right now from
always.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So questions for Jared, where his business comes from, how he does different things. And he's basically doing what a lot of you are doing right now. So ask away. You're sitting on databases with 400 or 500 people in them, and he's converting them to 50, 60 deals, and well, some of you aren't. So ask away, please.
I have a question. What was your skill set routine when you first got into the real estate business?
Right at the beginning, it was terrible. I mean, there was, I was like, a script, you want me to what? I was like, you want me to say what? And, there's a lot of questions that I was really uncomfortable with, like the opening line of that prequel script. When I, just that whole entrance was nerve-wracking for an amiable.
That part, you mean if what I say makes sense and you're
comfortable and confident? That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I told you this the other day, Jared. My biggest one in the scripts, and it was that way for years, is Jared, are you familiar with the techniques I use to get home sold? Oh my gosh, I thought it was the biggest ego.
Ego.
I hate it. And now I use that all the time.
Yeah. Part of that is just time and practice. Time and practice.
So when you did surrender to the scripts, what did it look like your practicing routine?
It was still 30 minutes a day of role playing practice. In the beginning, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to commit. And then let's say you're on it for a solid month and you're like, oh crap, I'm not seeing the results I want. And then you might, ditch your role play partner here and there in the following month. Well, that's probably the biggest mistake that I made at the very beginning of my career, because I hadn't bought into it. I didn't have the blind faith, that the scripts was the meal ticket to endless meals. I mean, really, so I get it's a mindset, but Mike always explains it best. I mean, think about the people that are on TV every day, the ones that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars for the movie that they're in. That's script. We just have to look at it that way. It's the same thing for us. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question.
Good answer. Great. Go ahead, Monica.
Jared, thank you so much for sharing with us. My question to you is, other than Mike Ferry, did you get any other type of training, like public speaking, anything, mindset, any other training?
No, the only thing that I brought to the table in terms of maybe having a little bit of confidence talking to people is I've, done a lot of off-Broadway shows for 20 some years, come to that point in my life, modeling and different things. So I, in a way, I knew the value of script, but I didn't know the value of script when it came to sales. I made it different, and it didn't have to be different. It was the same. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had zero. I really had zero.
Okay.
And that's probably why it took me, Monica, a little bit longer, you know, in my career with Mike is just understanding how to get all of the wheels to turn together, you know, and it does, and it will. It will. It just takes time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jared, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ali.
When you started coaching in Mike Ferry organization, let's say 1 week ago, you were an agent. Now, after a week, you were acting as a coach on the other side.
Right.
What was your feeling?
What was what?
What was your feeling?
What was my feeling about that?
Yes.
So basically transitioning from a full-time agent into a full-time coach. What was my feeling? Panic. You know, Mike, there's something about Mike that everybody gravitates towards. And having a lot of deep conversations with my coach at that time, Kathy Anderson, you know, she was able to give me a lot of insight. And I had to trust. But I also had to do the work. You know, it isn't just about, you know, showing up to a Zoom call. You know, as Neil knows, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of prep work. A schedule for me, you know, it was Monday through Friday for a long time, but then I finally got to the point where I coached Monday through Thursday, but half of Sunday was a work day for me because I just didn't show up to a coaching call not prepared. I spent, you know, depending on my workload, but I spent plenty of time preparing on Sunday for the week ahead, you know, but it was an adjustment, but I also knew I was going to be a better agent for it too at the same time.
And is that the case now, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the coaching experience, I know I'm a better agent today than when I was 4.5, 5 years ago on the other side of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Okay, other questions for Jared? Go ahead, Josie.
Jared, will you role play with me your past client's sphere of influence?
Yeah, for sure. You keep it. Do you want to be my past client?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, Josie. This is Jared Amaral here at Stevens and Borelli. This is a business call. Do you have a quick second for me?
Okay.
Okay, oh, great. You know, who do you know by chance that wants to buy or sell real estate in the next 7 to 10 days?
It's a script. I don't know anybody. Can't
Don't
think of
know.
anybody right now.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. You know, have you thought about taking advantage of this real estate market that we're in?
Maybe towards the end of the year.
Okay, what were you thinking towards the end of the year?
Maybe buying another investment property.
Okay, buying another one. So it sounds like I mean, how many do you have now? 1 or 2?
A few. Yeah.
A few? Okay, how long have you owned
would
those?
know.
Sure. Well, you know, sometimes my clients go out and purchase things without me, which is A-okay. I'm always happy to hear that. You know, so what time of year? This October, November? What are you thinking?
Yeah, that time.
Okay. So, you know, this is April. Would it be helpful if I just follow up with you midsummer just to see where you are in that process?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, fantastic. Now, before I let you go, Josie, do you have any real estate questions for me that I could help you with?
Nope. Can't think of anything right now.
All right. Well, Josie, it was great talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
So it's just simple. Just everything we do.
I used to overthink it a lot, and you just have to simplify it. Don't get in your head about it. It's just a conversation. But if you don't ask the questions and go in with intention, then those conversations is where it just goes nowhere. It just goes nowhere. Like, oh, hey, Josie, how's the family? Any trips, any vacation? Well, you don't have to ask that because everybody's been on lockdown for a year. So there's no answer that you're going to get that's going to be, wow, that's where you went. You know, it's got to be business.
Thank you.
For sure. Great question.
And you know what? It was awesome that you did not get disappointed because she bought a property on her own, and you said, "Okay, you just step over."
Yeah, I just say good for you. That's exciting. And then I might ask, where did you find it? How did you find it? What kind of rent are you getting? If I feel that it's necessary.
You're just having a conversation, aren't you, Jared?
That's it. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time, on those calls. They're going to be quick because that's the expectation from the beginning. You're like, do you have a quick minute for me or a quick second for me? You're already telling them, look, I'm not going to keep you on the phone. This is quick.
Got it. That's great. Good. Okay. Other questions? I saw. Go ahead.
Neil,
Al.
I have a question.
One
Yes,
second, Albert, Abigail, and then Albert.
All right.
Quick question. I thank you for speaking to us. I'd like to know when was that turning point where when you had the aha moment, like this is what I have to do, and if I do this every time, I'm just going to generate this amount of income.
Probably when we got to the other side of short sales. When I started out, my career was like, I started here at the office part-time in 03, but I wasn't licensed until the following year in 04 and started full-time. So that market was a high bubble, all the way to 04, 05, 06. So I had zero aha moments during that time. I'm still trying to figure things out. And then, the market crashed. So I didn't have time to think about anything else but survive. Then short sales came, same thing. So it wasn't until the short sales, that it really, everything truly clicked and resonated. The conversations I had were quality conversations and things were just happening really fast. So it wasn't like one day I just woke up. It was really a process. And part of it is I don't think I've allowed myself to really go back and think about that. So I appreciate the question. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Albert, you had a question?
Yes, Jared, thank you for sharing your knowledge. I appreciate it. I do
Absolutely.
have a question. Was there a time when you first became very comfortable with the scripts, but then you noticed that it was not giving you the results that you wanted? And did you discover that moment? What was that? What did you do different to ever go from learning the scripts and actually having matching your numbers?
Got it. Probably if I rewind the tape a little bit, if there was times where, it's all about tracking the numbers. So I'm always going to go back to the analyzer. The analyzer is what's going to tell me, okay, what am I doing efficiently? What am I doing, inefficiently? And so that's a real key element. If you're not, in Premiere and you're in 101, or if you just get a simple tracking sheet and track your numbers, that's going to tell you. So when I started looking at that, I talked to 10 expireds today and gosh, I really got nowhere. So I would probably go back and record my expired calls. I'd go back and listen because, when you're in a live moment, you're going to miss things. But if you go back on your own time, you're going to catch things. Then you could take that to your role play partner. Say, hey, Neil, yesterday morning I had a situation where the seller said this, but I don't think I handled it right. We just hammer out the opening. Don't go top to bottom of the script. Go to the part where you believe you're getting hung up on and hammer that out. And then go back and implement it and see if it improves. Yeah. It's a good question, Albert.
That's
Yeah.
great answer. Thank you, Albert. Good
Yeah.
question. Good.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Tess.
Like that.
Now, since you are coaching now, I'm just curious, I look like you're a high producer. Actually, there's two questions I wanted to ask. Why did you decide to just go in coaching as opposed to really doing the production?
Originally.
So I'm not coaching now. So that was a conversation Mike and I had. If I was like in your market where I might be averaging $10, $12, $15,000 commission check, I probably wouldn't have gone into coaching, or if I did, it would have been part-time coach. I'm in an area where values really are, on the smaller scale compared to the rest of the state. So financially, it was a great opportunity. And also too, I was at a stage in my life where I knew coaching would be a challenge, and it's fun to take on a challenge, something that is completely out of my element. I was completely uncomfortable. Neil, you've been with me at Mike's coaching training that we'd have before our events, and those are intense. But I mean, you very well know, and Mike's tough, but that's what makes you better. And I thought, what a great opportunity for me to be challenged and just to become better. Yeah.
Wonderful. So my second question would be, since you've been coaching and you've been talking to these agents, what is one thing that stood out to you with the agents that you were talking to, as far as working their business,
Yeah.
one thing that you really have to improve, was there anything that stood out on your end so far?
No, I appreciate that. That's a really great question, Tess. I would say a commonality that I noticed was that agents wanted results now. Hey, I talked to 20 people. What the hell? I got nothing. Yeah, I get it. But then I'd also have to make sure, okay, what's the age that I'm coaching? Is it a millennial? Is it someone older than me? That's the other thing with coaching, is you're coaching such a diverse group. You really had to understand who you were coaching and helping. But I would say majority of the agents wanted results now. And if they didn't get it now, they're like, oh, forget it. I'm out. It's not for me. And so it's not a race. It's slow and steady. It does take hard work, but my gosh, you got all these amazing top producers. We get all those wonderful panelists that Mike puts on the stage. There's nothing made up with what they share. It was hard work, but it was consistency. And you need the support of these great agents that are on this call. You have a fantastic broker. My broker has always supported me, but there's nothing, I couldn't really go to him, with some of these questions, because it's just another world. It's you got to surround yourself with like-minded agents who want the same thing, but you keep that accountability, you keep that consistency. Tess, there's nothing's ever going to stop you, ever. Yeah.
Thank you. Really
Sure.
good.
It's a great question.
Jared, thank you, Tess. Good stuff. Other questions for Jared?
Jared, I had a question that got sent to me. It says, can you ask Jared what made him finally buy into it and give into blind faith?
It's a great question. So Robert, tell them thank you for that. I think it was seeing the numbers in my analyzer, seeing the results I was getting. And that was like the confirmation. I'm really guilty for not taking a moment. Like Sydney would get on me a little bit. She's like, take a moment, like look what you just did between August and December. I wouldn't do it. But if you really look at your numbers and the results you're getting, that's your confirmation that it's working. And if it's not working, go to Neil, go to someone, who is having the success, and look at the business itself and figure, okay, what aspect can I change that's going to help make me money now? Don't bite off more than you can chew. Break it down into smaller components. Yeah.
Yeah, don't listen to Neil. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, sure.
All right, this is great. Very, very good. Okay, anyone else out here have a question for Jared? Anyone else?
Going once, going twice.
Jared, I don't know if you answered it in your answer. I don't think it grasped in my mind, but when you had a coaching client who had come from the mindset of always be realistic, how do you erase all those previous minds, all that previous conditioning to really taking that blind faith?
So maybe what you're really asking is having a client come into a call who maybe has bad habits, or his mindset is set one way and only one way. Is that really what you're asking?
Well, somebody who doesn't take
change.
Well, somebody who doesn't take that blind faith, like is doing the activities, yet it's not doing, like it just doesn't push themselves hard enough because of that holdback from that blind faith.
Got it. So their lack of blind faith and getting them really to buy into everything. So a lot of things that I take into consideration is, of course, understanding their background, understanding their personality style, I have to make sure that I'm coaching, Neil as an amiable to a way that he's going to receive what I'm coaching him on. I won't necessarily, say, hey, you need to have more blind faith. I won't do that. I might take a very specific activity and give them as an assignment for the week ahead, and then have them bring that result to the call. So I might just stair step them in, and then maybe a month or two into it, I might take a pause, and I might say, hey, you know what? Do you remember a couple months ago when you came to the call and you were having this problem? He's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Look at you now. Look what you've done. I think it's in those moments of being able to help the agent reflect back to their successes. I won't necessarily dwell on what they're not doing well. I'll take it as a small component and work with them on it to improve it, and then get them to go back and look to see, oh my gosh, that did work. It is working. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Does that help a little bit, Jamila?
It did, but then I'm asking, like, what would they do to those steps? So, I don't want to, that was a scenario. So I don't want to go into like somebody else's coaching call. It would just have to be specific to that individual, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah. Every individual is completely different. Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Will you ever consider to running your own coaching company, or just want to be a salesperson? Which one?
Salesperson all the way. I have no desire to.
Our Mike Ferry coaches, they go open their own brokerages, so stick power.
No desire. No desire. Unlike, some things that have happened in the past, I will say this. When I commit to something, I would eat, sleep, and breathe MFO. I would go to bed at night. MFO is the last thing I think about. I'd wake up in the morning. MFO would be the first thing that I would think about. I consumed it that much. I have zero desire to do that. For that would just be an ego thing. That's just not me. Yeah.
Like Mike Ferry gave you a very hard time on coaching.
I mean, if he sent me a document to sign, I would sign it. I would never do it. Yeah, it's just not me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. Thank you.
Good job.
I have
Excellent.
a question really quick.
Go ahead. Is that Eric?
Yeah, it's me. I wanted to find out, thank you first of all, but I wanted to find out what your schedule is and like your morning routine, like how does that go?
Sure. So role plays are 7:30. Jump on the phones right at 8. Sometimes 5 to 8. Depending on how the role play goes. I'm just doing sometimes 3.5 hours of prospecting to get my 30 contacts in. Then I'll go back, do some lead follow-up, have lunch, then 1 to 1:30, some additional lead follow-up. 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, I'll do a little bit of skills and script practice. If there's some properties that have come on the market because they come up and go so fast, I'll try to get in there to preview. And it's just all about going on appointments and preparing for a listing presentation.
Good job.
Rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. Exactly.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Fantastic. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have we have time maybe for one more question? I know Jared's got to move on. And we actually have some prospecting to do today. Woo!
Woo! Money.
Afternoon work.
I have a question now.
Sure. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just wondering what your office looks like, what your team looks like that you have now.
The office physically or the team itself?
Well, the team, of course.
Okay. So that's fair. I wasn't sure, I can turn my computer and you can look at my office, but honestly, I'm probably not maybe the best person to ask that question. I have one full-time TC, and she also doubles as my buyer's agent, and she's been with me for 13 years. Believe it or not, she works only 3 days a week, 5 hours a day, and we still get it done.
That's great.
Yeah. I keep it simple. That's like a whole other conversation, and as I grow my business and get towards the 80 mark, 100 deal, mark, then I'll look at, adding someone that's full-time like a buyer's agent at that time. But as of right now, lean and mean is the way to stay.
Right.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Good
You bet.
job.
Great
Excellent.
question.
All right, everyone, unmute yourselves. Please unmute yourselves. Let's give them a big hand. Great work today. Woo! All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate this
Wow,
opportunity.
Jared, that was great. A lot of great gems there. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if anybody has additional questions, feel free to share my email. I'm more than happy to take time, aside to talk to anybody or to call someone if they have some additional questions.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. We'll definitely put your information into the chat box. And if
Great.
anybody's got a referral, is that okay? Will you take referrals?
Fine.